to be another red hair video. That is how I touch up my ombre when it gets too low, you know, how I bring it up. I only do this every 3 to 5 months, just depending on how fast my hair is growing, which is not very fast. But once it gets roughly to above my ear, I do bring it up. It is the same exact technique that I used to initially get the ombre. So if you're looking to get an ombre red and you still have dark hair, you could totally use the same method because it's the same thing. The only difference is that now I just use 20 volume. Before, the first time I used 30 volume. I also use the same exact products as when I had completely red hair. So if you're looking to go completely red, again, you could use the same, you know, products, but just put it on your entire head. I mentioned I don't do this process very often. I only, you know, bring up my ombre about every 3 to 5 months because the product that I use is a permanent hair color, which uses developer, which damages the hair. So in between, what I do is retouch my hair or make it vibrant with semi-permanent colors. And the colors that I like to use, or the brands, are Manic Panic and Ion. These are semi-permanent colors that don't use developer. They're not going to damage your hair. They do wash out, they do fade really fast, so you do have to do it pretty often. I could have a whole another video on how I refresh my hair. I have one already. I'll link all my red hair videos down below in the description box, but I could do an updated one because I haven't mentioned Manic Panic, I don't think. This one's new, I just started using it. Currently, the colors that I use are Manic Panic Hot Hot Pink and Ion in the colors red. Sometimes I mix them both together, sometimes I use them individually. It just depends what I'm feeling like. First, I'm going to start off with, you know, the process of how I actually touch up my ombre and all that stuff, and then at the end I'm going to provide a little bit more information on how you could, you know, get red hair or ombre red hair for different, you know, hair colors. So from blonde to black, I'm going to give you a few little tips and tricks that you can do. Additionally, I'm going to have a live question and answer session tonight, Thursday, December 17th on Periscope. I'm going to put my username right here. So at 7 p.m. I'm going to be answering all your guys' questions if you want to join me at that time. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Now we're going to need, first of all, we're going to need some developer. Currently I use 20 volume. The first time I used 30 volume. It just depends on how much lift you need and how bright you want your hair. If you want your hair to be really bright, you could use 30. If your hair has a hard time picking up color, you could use 30. If your hair lifts pretty easily and you don't want it to be like super bright but still intense, then you could use 20 and that should be enough lift for you. Next, we're going to need the color, and I use L'Oreal Hicolor Highlights in the color Magenta. It has to be L'Oreal Hicolor Highlights because they have a black box, which is just Hicolor, and then they have this red box, which is Hicolor Highlights. That's the one that I use. I used to use magenta and red mixed together, but now I just use magenta because it's a little bit more toned down than the red, and it also has a lot more of a pinky base. You're also going to need some protein color filler. I get it in the color red, and this is just going to fill in the porosity of your hair, and it's also going to make the color take a little bit more evenly. Of course, you're going to need a tinting bowl, a tinting brush, and some gloves because when you're working with red, it gets really messy. And then finally, a plastic cap just to seal in all the color and let the heat kind of, you know, process the color. To get started, I brush out my hair because it just makes it easier for sectioning, you know, no knots, no tangles. And then I jump into sectioning. I like to do 2 sections in the front, and then I separate a crown section, and then I tie 2 back sections. So that's 5 sections altogether. You could section in any way or form that you like, and whatever way makes it easier for you. Next, I like to apply some Vaseline all over my hairline and around my ears, on my neck, just because it makes the cleanup process a lot easier. Red hair dye does stain like no other, so it's just going to make, you know, the scrubbing time in the shower a lot shorter, a lot easier, and, you know, that way you won't end up with like red skin for a week. Now you want to start mixing stuff together, and the first thing that I do is put in the color into the mixing bowl. I only use half a tube because I'm just doing, like I said, I'm just touching up my ombre, bringing up the roots some, and then my hair is really short. So I just use half the tube and that's enough for me. But depending on the length of your hair, you may want to use less, you may want to use more. You know, you just have to play with that a little bit. And then you want to add double the amount of developer. So each little tube of color has 1.2 ounces of color. Being that I only use half of the tube, that's 0.6 ounces of color. So you want to add double the developer. For me, that's going to be 1.2 ounces. My mixing bowl has little measurements on the side, so that's how I add the developer. But if you do not have a bowl with measurements, you could always buy little measuring cups at Sally's. They're pretty inexpensive, they're about $2. And then, or you could use like an old plastic measuring container from your kitchen, you know, that has ounces, and then you could do it that way. Next, I add the protein color filler into my little color mixture. Some people add it before, some people add it after. The red one is recommended that you add it with your color mixture. I use about 1/3 of the bottle. It recommends using 1/2. But because, like I said, I have shorter hair, I just use 1/3, and that seems to be enough for me. And then, of course, you want to just mix everything together. I use a little whisk, which makes it so much easier because red color molecules are much thicker, and it just takes a lot more to break them down into a smooth consistency. So again, I get that little whisk at Sally's for about $2, and it's going to come really handy for all those touch-ups. So now we can start applying the color. First, you want to go ahead and section off a thin section of your hair. I use a rat tail comb, but you could also use the end of the brush. So once I have parted that little section, what I like to do is pull it out straight. And I like to start by applying the product in a V shape. So I'm going to paint a streak right on this outer portion here, and then on this outer portion out here. Sometimes I'll do a third one in the middle, but not all the time. It just depends, you know, kind of eyeball your sections and just vary the lengths at which you apply these streaks. And then once I paint these streaks on, what I do is saturate the middle to the tips. The reason being that because it's an ombre, you want the lighter or brighter portions to be towards the bottom and then darker as you go up. So you want more product down here and then less product up here. So once you saturate these ends, then you could go ahead and take your brush and feather in this middle section where these V streaks are. Just feather them in, varying, you know, how high you take up that feather, that streak, just really quick. And you should have very little product on your brush left at this point. And you're just doing, and what I mean by feather is just moving your brush really fast, kind of up and down in quick, short strokes. So I'm just going to show you a few more times on the video, you know, how I actually feather each section. But what makes it kind of blend nicely is that you vary how high and how low, you know, you feather the color on. So just make sure that you're doing it really fast and kind of varying how high and how low you go up. I hope that makes sense. I put on the plastic bag over my head or a plastic cap, whatever it is that you have, and I let it sit for 30 minutes. Then I wash it off. I use the tiniest amount of shampoo, you know, like the smallest smallest teensy bit of shampoo just to kind of make sure that you get any developer or peroxide residue off of your hair, and make sure that you do it quick so that you don't rinse off too much of the red color. I also condition. It's very important to condition your hair. But that's pretty much the whole process that I do to, one, get the ombre initially, and to bring up the roots. I do just put the permanent color over my whole hair because, like I said, it's every 3 to 5 months. So by that time, my hair has pretty much healed, and also it helps kind of get rid of any buildup that may be darkening my hair over those, 3 or 5 month gaps. So I do just put the permanent color all over, but in between, like I said, it's very important. I do not use permanent colors in between. I use semi-permanent colors. Pretty much all I do. Now I'm just going to kind of give you a few tips from blonde to black hair on how to achieve like a red color, because I do get a lot of questions for different color hair. If you are a blonde, it's very easy to go red. All you have to do really is use a semi-permanent color or a demi-permanent color if you wish. Demi-permanent colors use a low volume, like a 10 volume or less developer, and they just deposit color. Semi-permanents as well, they just kind of coat your hair with the color that you're applying. So blondes have a really easy part. No need to use the L'Oreal Hicolor highlights because that has bleach in it, and because your hair has already been bleached or it doesn't need bleach, it's not necessary. It's unnecessary damage. If I had blonde hair, I wouldn't use it. If you have light brown hair and you want like an intense, obviously red color, but not fire truck red, you could use the L'Oreal Hicolor highlights and then use a 20 volume developer. That should give you a nice red. But if it doesn't get you as bright as you want the first time, just do it again a couple weeks to months later. Or you could also use a 30 volume just initially if your hair is healthy enough. That's going to give you a really bright red, assuming that your hair takes lift easily. Moving on to dark hair. We're going to start with virgin dark hair. Virgin hair takes color a lot easier than processed hair, so using the L'Oreal Hicolor highlights and 30 volume should get you a nice intense initial red. If you want it brighter after that, then you could go ahead and repeat the process with a 20 volume. If you have processed dark hair, so that means that you had, like for me, I had light brown hair and then I dyed dark brown on top of it, and then getting back to red was a lot harder. What you want to do is actually use a color remover. A color remover is just going to remove the last, color that you applied on top. It's going to remove that and leave you with your original color that you had. So if you had light brown hair below that dark brown, you're not going to get like a clean, light brown. It's going to be like an orangey, color, but it's going to get rid of that darkness. So you could go ahead and use a color remover and then use the L'Oreal Hicolor highlights with a 20 volume, depending on how light, it left your hair. A color remover is not damaging per se to your hair because all it does is shrink color molecules, and then you have to rinse them out for about 30 minutes. It's a very important process. It's not damaging to the hair per se, but it does leave it a little bit drier. So I would condition super well before you apply that L'Oreal Hicolor highlights. Another option for dark hair, which I'm super hesitant to share with you guys, is bleach wash. If you have virgin hair, you could also do this process and you don't need the color remover. So if you have processed dark hair, what you can do is use a color remover to get rid of as much of the dark color as possible, and then do a bleach wash. A bleach wash is basically like a diluted version of full-on bleach. You mix the bleach powder, as you normally do, and then you add about half the amount of shampoo to that. Then you apply it on your hair. I actually did this process on my sister until it gets to about an orangey stage, and then you could go ahead and apply a red semi-permanent color over that because your hair is bleached. Your hair is already light enough to where it's going to let the red show up nice and bright. So you don't need to use the L'Oreal Hicolors for that. Just use semi-permanent over that. You could also use that process if you have like virgin black hair, minus the color remover. So just do the bleach wash until you get to like an orangey stage, and then apply a semi-permanent color. Always super hesitant to share those extra options with you guys. I have tried them on myself. I've done it, except for the bleach wash. I tried on my sister. But it's things that I have personally done that have worked. but you have to make sure that your hair is healthy enough to tolerate all these chemical processes. You will chemically burn your hair off if your hair is not healthy. That's super important. If your hair is dry and damaged, you should not even be dyeing your hair anyways, any color. And always go to a professional if you can, if you have the means for it. I don't, so I do it myself. But if I had the option, I would go to a professional. That's all I gotta say. Alright, so with that being said, this concludes this video. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comment section below. Remember that today I'm going to be doing a live Q&A session on Periscope. I'll put my name up here again, and you could join me there at 7 p.m. with any other questions. So I hope you guys have a great day. Happy holidays, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Remember that wherever you go and whatever you do, always leave your mark.